So welcome. We have artist Jacob Lovett with us today, who we currently have on exhibit on our gallery wall, a show called Western Windows, and it'll be up through mid-May. What do we say? And May 4th. And so we've been wanting to have Jacob up on our walls for a while now. We met him. Well, I met you a couple of years ago when we first opened. And we've really enjoyed watching your growth and progression and just everything that's going on with your flow as an artist. And so welcome, and tell us briefly, how you got to where you are. It's a cool story.
Yeah, well, I think the first time whenever I walked in here and saw all of Steve's stuff and whatnot, I thought it would be awesome to have my work in here. So, I appreciate y'all allowing me to put some of my stuff on y'all's walls, and I think it looks great right now. So
yeah,
looks fantastic.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, the show Western Windows is what we got up here for, I guess, the couple months that we're up here. And I guess I can kind of give you all a rundown of how I got all started in this. So, I think it was actually 5 years ago today was the first day that I actually started painting.
Wow, happy anniversary.
Yeah. So it's been an interesting journey. So I never painted before my whole entire life. Went to school at Ole Miss, graduated from there with a marketing degree, came back, worked a corporate job just like all my friends. Was there for a year, and I was actually, making a little bit of money and just spending all my money on, going out and hanging out with friends. And I was like, let's change up the trajectory here a little bit and focus on something that you can do just as a hobby and put money towards, I guess, something else besides booze. And,
right.
But ended up, somebody randomly asked me from high school, actually, she asked me to paint a picture just out of the blue for their family of their late brother. Hadn't spoke with her in a while, and she ended up reaching out and said, here's some money. We want this. It's going to be for a Father's Day, Mother's Day gift. And I typed in how to paint on YouTube. Found a video, did the deal, gave him the painting, made me feel good, made him feel good. And after that,
I do have a question about that part of your story.
Yeah.
Is that it was something that you liked to do when you were a kid, just like drawing and stuff.
Yeah.
So this friend must have known you had some ability, like you weren't just, you didn't hand her a bunch of stick figures.
Yeah. Essentially I would be going, get in trouble in math because I was drawing doodles or something like that or whatnot. And I had a little bit of artistic talent, I guess is what you could say, in growing up. And I always kind of veered more towards that. My mom always encouraged me to do that. Okay. So I took like maybe one or two classes in college, but that was just to kind of get an easy A and
a couple credits. Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Had a little bit of background in drawing and whatnot, but never painted before, like I said. So
and plus when someone's like, "Hey, I want you to," it's for this special family member.
Sure.
I mean, no pressure. So I can see the research part of that.
When I read that, when I heard the story and then I read it again about that.
Yeah.
Because I remember you telling me about that initial piece. I thought to myself, well, what do you think about that piece now?
Yeah.
After all that you've done, looking back on that first piece.
Well,
you want to get it back and touch it up?
Oh man, I've got to do them right. I told her last time we saw each other was at a wedding, and I told her and her family like I would love to recreate that same piece. With a little bit more. Knowledge that I have now and how to figure out everything. But you could say it was a 0 compared to 100.
Yeah,
on
of
a
course.
lot of cases, but it's just kind of a testament, kind of going into the next phase. Whenever I was, after that time, I typed in painting teachers on Google, and it just so happened that there was a painting teacher 2 blocks away from my house where I lived. So I walked in there one day, and it's this place called Studio Sapka. The owner, Laird Alexi, was my painting teacher for about 3 years, and he still is a great mentor to me, and he kind of taught me everything that I know. So anyways, fast forward, I've been painting for about 5 years now and kind of just been dabbling in different things, but kind of hitting a stride with this Western contemporary type of, genre and theme and niche. And it's been a lot of fun. So, it's just been an interesting journey, and it's been a lot of fun.
One of the things I think that I find so impressive too about you is maybe it's your marketing background or, the things you studied in college is just you really have a nice, healthy balance of just, self-promoting yourself, showing your process, delivering the work on time and, just being really, no shade against any other artists, but it's like, it's hard to promote. It's hard for artists to like self-promote because there's a lot of, your ego involved.
Sure.
And so, are there any moments where you're just like, oh, here I go again, like promoting myself? Like what advice would you give to artists who are kind of struggling with that part of their kind of life?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think whenever I first started out, I had finished my first painting, and all the people that I was going to painting classes with, they didn't know me before. So it was really easy to be completely myself in those moments, and to be able to, let people know that, this is kind of what I wanted to do. And only a few select people knew what I was doing at the time. I think it was my roommate and, my mom and my brother and my sister and my stepdad. Like those are the only people that knew what I was doing. And I waited for about 4 or 5 months to post my first painting that I did because I was so nervous about what the reception was. Like, what the heck? Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
What's the deal here? And but the reception that I got was so overwhelmingly supportive that it just made the whole difference. So that one post that I did really opened the doors, and you're very vulnerable whenever you're putting yourself out there that you're not doing something, and it's a huge knock to somebody's ego whenever you get the door slammed in your face.
Right.
But it was so overwhelmingly supportive of the just the feedback that I got. So once I got that, it was just kind of a shot of ego boost goes up, and then you kind of got to level it out and then just keep working towards it. So I was working 2 jobs to pay my lessons, and I was getting help from other people as well, and that was something that I was proud of myself for doing. And I think once you're putting your own either time or effort or money into it, trying to self-promote is just the only way that you're going to be able to get that back. So I would say, I guess, for other artists, if you're nervous about self-promoting your stuff, that's totally fine. But you're going to have to do it one day, because you might be the best artist or whatever you do in the world. But if nobody knows about it, then how are you going to, showcase that? And some people do it for themselves, which is totally fine. But if you're looking to become a professional artist or musician or creative of any kind, you've got to do your own self-promotion, because nobody else is going to do it for you.
Right.
At least at first.
Yeah, right. And so many things have come about for you because of that,
Well, I would say, just watching you from, it seems like the very beginning. Yeah. The one thing that I think stands out in kind of watching the way you've operated is that, number one, you're very articulate, probably more articulate about what you do than 90% of the artists that we have seen. The other piece to it is, I think you're very conscious of dealing with people and analyzing the art that you're producing, and it's sophisticated, and it's you've observed well what is happening in the art world, and I think you have you've found a niche that kind of feeds a lot of different demands in the business. You're doing Western, and that's very hot right now, but it's also contemporary Western, which fits in virtually anybody's office or home. and your technique is strong, and you're doing so many things right. But I would say the thing that you do really well is sit in front of a potential client and articulate what you're doing, and you're very approachable, and you just do a very good job of presenting your art.
Yeah.
And like you say, there's a lot of people who have great technical skills and even have interesting things that they are painting or working on, but they can't articulate that, or worse, they don't want to have a face-to-face with a customer at all. And if that's the case, they never get their art sold. And
sure.
A lot of what we're seeing, at least in our store, is that people want to have a connection to the art.
Yeah,
and that connection can be just the visual. Okay, that looks like their backyard at their ranch and so and so, or it could be that they're connected to the artist.
Sure.
And that artist articulates what the art is about, and they get it, and and it's fun for them, and it's enjoyable for them, and they love the artist, and it's just a real positive experience.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Well, so on that note, in terms of articulating, I mean, we can just jump right to Western Windows. In terms of, I think my observation from just the customers we've had, and mine and yours, and the inspiration for this particular series, because it's a big departure from Blinders, which was the previous show. Walk us through, articulate the inspiration for that.
Yeah.
And did you do this series with us in mind, like with Chieffalo Americana in mind, or were you like, what was the thought process in this
whole deal?
This whole deal.
Well, I think that I actually had a conversation with a buddy of mine yesterday. We were talking about like overarching themes in like really good movies, and I think that every good movie that you've ever seen, or every good song that you've ever heard, or every good record that you've ever heard, there's always an overarching theme, and that sort of articulation of working backwards to, or I guess with the end in mind, essentially. So knowing that it was going to be in this space, obviously we can just go from the size of the paintings, the frames that are going to be around the canvases, but also the imagery that will be in there as well. Yeah. So I did have this space in mind, not necessarily pulling from the colors, but looking at these now, like everything that y'all have in here actually bounces off very well. So it kind of works with that, but you could also replicate that in any home. But the idea behind this was, this is kind of my relationship with the American West. I went out to West Texas for the first time a few months ago when I had some pieces up in the gauge. And I went out there, I think 3 times, and every single time it was a completely different change of scenery. So, because it was all different times of the year, spring, summer, fall, or summer, fall, winter, actually.
Yeah.
And, this is just kind of my relationship with it. So I didn't grow up, on a 100-acre ranch, waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, herding cattle or roping horses or anything like that. But I've always been kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out of a lot of things that I've done, just to kind of peek in. And I guess the Western Windows is my visualization of showcasing my relationship with that type of cowboy culture. So, the way that the pieces are kind of represented with the subjects, and they're kind of transposed on the canvas as they're emerging from the space or entering into a space.
Right. I mean, talk about peeking in, and straddling, and I mean, it's a little bit like you're interacting with it, but you're also far enough away that you're observing it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think that it's also like, is it a longing for something new, or is it a yearning for something lost? So I kind of use the analogy of like somebody who is from West Texas who wants to be a stockbroker, or somebody from New York who wants to be a cattleman.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to grow up or be in that space to end up doing that, but it's your desire to kind of push towards that, to become whatever you want to be. So I didn't really expect myself. I guess if you were asking me 10 years ago, where would you see yourself in 10 years, I wouldn't have never said that I was going to be a, contemporary Western artist. And people would actually buy my artwork.
Right.
So, it's just been kind of that relationship with that, and then being able to kind of join the two together of like my journey, as well as the, I guess, the ever-changing landscape of the American West, but also the ever-changing landscape of, my own life and somebody else's life. So that's the way I interpret it, but obviously art is up to everybody else's interpretation as well. And, I've heard a bunch of different things about it and whatnot, but I think that's what's really cool about it. So,
Wow.
But it's not too avant-garde to not get a point across in some sort of sense. Sometimes you want a little mystery, but if you don't have any words on the pages, you can't read the book. So it's just impossible.
Yeah. There's, this particular one.
The pieces to me, now I grew up in the 60s and 70s. So the pieces to me remind me a lot of those Marlboro ads that used to be on billboards and in magazines. And you can see why they were so damn successful because you look at these pieces and they really give you that Western romantic flavor. And it kind of makes sense to me now more than ever after looking at these pieces about how Marlboro was the most successful cigarette brand of all time. And they lived off of that image for many years after they they had to quit advertising.
It's still
but this whole romantic Western imagery is very powerful, and there's no mystery as to why Yellowstone and all these new Western series are so popular. There's something about it that people have always been attracted to it. And someone in New York could look at these pieces and be as excited about them as somebody here in Fort Worth, Texas.
I think so too.
And
I think for me, it taps into a something that is current, but also sparks nostalgia, if that makes sense. Like
Absolutely.
I'm a child of the 70s, but I feel like even though you can't really, these aren't like period pieces. You're not like dating them in a certain way with those details, but there's something about it that's like nostalgic for me, about, even though it's nostalgia for something that's presently going on, so it's hard to describe, but it's kind of that, it's got a warm, I don't know, it's got road trip feelings.
Sure.
It's got not in the billboard sense, but just being a kid in the back of your parents' like station wagon, like looking through the window and looking at the landscapes and watching it, pass you by. And if you were lucky enough to see anything like this, I don't know. It's just really, it feels like homey.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing about it to me is it's unique. I mean, I don't know of any other artist that's doing this kind of thing. Now, there's a lot of Western art out there, and there's just a full spectrum of things. But you've carved out a nice little niche with these pieces, and I just have to. It makes me smile, because it's just so clever. And that's the other thing I love about good art is something clever about it.
Yeah,
and you've really nailed that aspect of producing, marketable and interesting art.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these references are pulled from some old catalogs, or advertisements, magazine ads, billboards, stuff like that. So you can notice it. Those who look close enough and those who I tell will figure it out in their own way. But I think there is something with the 70s, like Western and like the 90s Western looks, 80s Western even. It just kind of romanticized that with all the advertisements and, especially all the print ads, everything was shot on film. So it's like, I think that trends recirculate, right? And it's a natural thing for people to want something that they weren't a part of. So today you see kids wearing, Led Zeppelin shirts and whatnot, but they probably haven't even heard a record. But that's just the way it is. And, girls are wearing high-waist shorts and pants and stuff. And that was something back in, a different time. So it always recirculates. But I guess with this series, it's trying to contemporary and modernize that into where it just stays in a certain era or transcends certain eras. So, but yeah, I love these pieces and they're a lot of fun.
Well, you say that about things were shot on film and there's obviously there's a richness with shooting things in film. And so this technique, I'm looking for it on your, what's the technique that you use? That's the Italian word.
Oh, the Vellatura?
Yeah, the Vellatura. Now, is that something you learned in your education, that kind of technique? Because it's based in, it's very old technique.
So my painting teacher, he is from Albania, and his dad was a professional artist in Albania. So they moved over here in 1999 and opened up their studio/gallery. And then they started doing art classes. So basically, I can kind of go through my process of how all these are taken, but usually it's from a photograph, whether it's sourced from another photographer or somebody else's or my own. And then I'll go into Photoshop, edit a few things, turn it into whatever colors I want it. And then from there on, I draw the whole entire piece. I'll spray fixative on the canvas to seal the piece. And then I'll use this technique called Vellatura. And it's basically 90% oil. I use linseed oil and then 10%, give or take 95, 5%, whatever it might be. And then I'll mix those two together. And for all of these, I use like a burnt sienna because it's going to make all of the colors and the tones more richer once it comes out. So for all the black and white pieces, I use black because that under painting, it needed to have some depth to it. And, you got to have all the shadows. So then I'll wipe away everything with like a rag or a Q-tip or whatever I've got on hand, and that'll solidify the shadows and the highlights. And then from there on, I'll usually use 1 or 2 layers of paint, and that's what kind of you see on this. So majority of this stuff was 1 layer, and some people paint in multiple layers, but the way I was taught, and I'm kind of OCD with that, is I just do it. If you're like writing a paper, I go from top to bottom to left to right, and whatever gets hit first on that, it's just the way that it goes. So being right-handed, that's just the way I've done it. So if I were left, I'd do it opposite. But that's kind of the technique that I've learned, and that's the way that I do it, not necessarily the only way. So whenever people hear this, they might say like, well, I do it this way, can achieve the same thing. So to each their own, that's the way I play ball. So, but
well, for such a with the negative space and the contemporary feel, the fact that you kind of incorporate that technique also makes it, kind of rich, like an old film photograph. That's kind of what I was getting at.
Sure.
If that made sense.
No, I totally understand.
Well, and the pieces, they just feel like they're 3-dimensional almost. And that's the other thing about it that kind of fascinates me is the window aspect of this makes them look 3-dimensional. And you've done that so well. And, the pieces, obviously, I sit here and I stare at them all day.
We get to look at them all day until they go.
So I'm just intrigued by all that. In my life, I have seen people that have worked at something their whole life and they've never mastered it. And then I've seen people that right out of the blocks, they're good at something.
Sure.
You have been good right out of the blocks at what you're doing here.
Well, I appreciate that.
And so the other thing is you'll see someone right out of the blocks, they're good at something, and then they stay there.
Sure.
It's like you keep taking these big, giant steps. And this is a giant step to me from your last work. And it almost makes me anxious to see what you're going to be doing next.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, I appreciate
Like, where are you going with this?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I've got a show in the fall that I'll be announcing here soon. And I've got 15 paintings that I'm currently working on. I haven't really decided if I'm going to have this as like an extension of this show, because I really love the way that these pieces have come together, and I feel like it needs some more opportunities, some more pieces to the collection. I don't really like to call it quits on a collection if it's only 4 or 5 pieces. So whether or not that's for this month or for down in the fall or at another time, we'll definitely see a few more of these. If not a lot more of these, because it's just, they're fun. And I think that I can figure out ways to do a lot of different things with it. So, and not even necessarily just keeping it in Western themes, because, I don't want to build myself in a box. But that's what I enjoy right now. And maybe next summer it's, 1980s motorcycle gangs or something like that, but we'll see.
We had talked before about a project you're working on where you're actually going to go out west. And you're going to take your own photographs and subject matter. And I'm assuming it's going to evolve into something.
Yes. So actually this April, a couple weeks, 2 weeks, late April and early May, we'll be going up to Colorado. We're going to Ranchlands, Zapata Ranch. And we'll be up there shooting videography and photography while we're there. It's a beautiful ranch near Colorado Springs, and they're gracious enough to have us out there. And we're going to go out there and get a bunch of reference photos and see what we can make of it. Maybe get some of y'all's clothes on and, get some shots for y'all as well. So, and then we're going to do the same damn thing in Arizona. So we're going to Wickenburg, Arizona, to the cool. KL Bar Ranch. Apparently it's going to be a super blossom or super bloom.
Actually, Arizona is having a super bloom too.
So we're real excited because I think it's going to be pretty cold in Colorado the week before, and then we'll be going down to Arizona to get a completely different vibe and feel. So we'll be going out there with a few buddies of mine and just getting some awesome photography and get to know them and kind of share their story as well. That's the main goal. Is what we want to do is be able to share the story through that. So any pieces that I create from those, I want to definitely be able to get to share both of those ranches' stories and their history and the people that work there currently and have previously worked there as well. And you're going to take that photography, you're going to capture those images. See, I see that as the progression of what you're doing with all this. And so that to me is fascinating about your process. You've started with someone else's images, then you've created these images from other pieces, and then now you're going to go find your own images. And so I was anxious to see this series, but now I'm anxious to see the next one. It'll be a lot of fun.
I think I really admire your sense of like this being structured, but then like allowing organic things to come within that structure. Like you're throwing these nets out and you're doing, like round top, and you're kind of like throwing these nets out and you've got a structure, like we're going to do this, but then those stories, you can't predict those stories. They're just going to come about and then you're going to have the eye or the, the kind of skill to sort of pick out that one little thing within that. And you're going to also do video.
Yeah, so we're going to get a bunch of behind the scenes stuff.
I think he wants to go with you.
And
I do. I just going to watch.
Whenever I get a little bit more cool, I'll be able to
bring tag-alongs.
But I mean, we're going to get some video, like behind the scenes stuff. And then I'll be doing a piece for Ranchlands as well to put on their website for them. And then, it's just going to be a bunch of fun. And, it's a lot of fun with being able to just get out there and actually live in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as we possibly can, we still got to get the shots. But being out there and being able to experience that, you can kind of grab the dirt and be able to feel it and put it into something else as well. So I think that's really cool about that. And, I'm just blessed for the opportunity. So, it's been fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would ask, like, as a last question, just kind of what has been, or has there been a big surprise for you? Unexpected, anything that's come about from the day you made this thing for your friend and where you are now? And if you look back, like, what would be the thing you just did not expect? Sorry, I didn't prepare him for this.
No, you're good. Well, I think pretty much it's all been unexpected. Overwhelming support whenever I first put out that first picture. The reception that I got at my first solo show last year was amazing. The fact that people will pay, me their hard-earned money to put something in their house because I've been able to connect with them from something that I didn't even tell them about, that it's literally just a visual representation of their connection towards it. I think the coolest part has been meeting so many different people, and I don't think that without this as the catalyst, I would have never met maybe y'all or any of the other creatives that I've talked to as well. And I think there's been a lot of lows and a lot of highs, and I think as an artist or a creative, you have to be able to understand that's what you're getting into. It's not a very steady 2-week paycheck, 9 to 5. It's countless hours, and my Instagram or my social media is essentially a highlight reel of all those highs. And I'm not one to share a bunch of the lows as well, but I would say that the biggest thing that's come out of this is just being able to, do what I love for a living. It's been a huge blessing, and being able to, share my perspective on life and things that I've always thinking about with other people, and for people to actually listen to it for whatever it's worth. It's just been really cool to be able to do that. So,
yeah. And who could have predicted exactly like that? You're like,
I don't think so.
I'm just going to Google how to paint, and it opens up this whole rich world.
The painting is almost it's your vehicle to live through these artistic experiences. And I would almost compare in some way what you're doing with this and how you're using this to experience things to a guy that was in here a couple weeks ago that wrote a book.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a cowboy that was going to be a cowboy. That he was graduating from University of Wyoming, and he was going to go run a ranch or be a cowboy doing some sort of ranch work. Yeah. And took a trip and suddenly discovered how much he liked to travel. And he's using his ability to be a cowboy to actually travel.
Yeah.
And
makes sense.
Almost as if that's going to be his career, is going to be traveling and documenting his travel through the ability to be a cowboy.
Yeah.
And you're going to document your experiences through the ability to paint.
Absolutely.
But it could grow into something else. I'm very anxious to see the video. And see what happens and what comes of that in the photography. And how that affects your painting. But you might end up doing painting and video and photography, and it could evolve into a lot of things for you. I don't think that I'll be doing a lot of, or I think that I'll be doing a lot of things here in the future, but I like to stay focused on one thing at a time and kind of move forward on that. So, but really just kind of like what you said, everyone's got something. You just kind of got to look for it. And I think that, if you find it, at whatever age, it's going to be a blessing. So some people never get to find it, but it's always there. Some people never look, or they never find it. So very well said. But yeah, this has been
Yeah.
Fun.
Well,
Well,
thank
this
you.
is great. So for our viewers, we can find Jacob at Instagram is at
Jacob Lovett Art.
Yeah.
www.jacoblovettart.com.
Yeah.
You can purchase prints, originals, commissions, whatever you want. From
Yeah.
there, reach out if you have anything in particular. info@jacoblovettart.com.
Yeah.
So,
And if you have a ranch that you need Jacob to come out and
Yeah.
hang out on for a couple months, and
sure.
Kind of document things
Yeah.
and reach out to him.
We're good with trades, and everything's all good with that. So
Terrific.
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, this has been great. And then the Western windows will be up on our walls through May 4th.
Yep.
Is that like some Star Wars Day or something?
May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you. They'll be up. So if any of our viewers need any like a digital catalog of what's available, we can just shoot us a email and we can get that to you.
Yep.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jacob.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good
There
to
we
see you.
go.
Aw. Okay.